In the midst of the Syrian civil war, while the world saw Aleppo through grainy news footage, one British surgeon decided to move against the current, heading directly into the chaos. His name is David, not a renowned vascular and trauma surgeon from London. He wasn't on an official mission. He slipped into Syria multiple times to do something almost unthinkable, to save lives and teach war surgery inside a city under siege. Aleppo, by that time, was a place where the rules of war had been shattered. Hospitals weren't safe havens. They were targets. They were bombed, sometimes twice in a row to hit the rescuers who rushed to help. Doctors were abducted, forced to work for armed groups, or killed. To survive, the medical system had to go underground. David not found himself working in one of these secret hospitals. For the young Syrian doctors working alongside him, Not was more than just a visiting expert. He was a lifeline. Most were not trained for the horrific injuries caused by modern warfare: shredded arteries, blasted abdomens, chests filled with shrapnel. In the brief, terrifying lulls between airstrikes, he taught them skills that would normally take years to learn. He showed them how to clamp a torn blood vessel, how to handle a catastrophic limb injury, and how to make the split-second decision between amputation to save a life and a desperate fight to save a limb. One particular case in M1 burned itself into his memory forever. A man was rushed into the underground theater, a mess of blood, dust, and torn clothing. The team moved fast. He had severe injuries to his chest and abdomen. His vital signs were unstable, and time was running out. As they cut away his clothes to find the bleeding, one of the Syrian doctors pulled down the man's trousers to check his legs. That's when something small and metallic fell out of a pocket, hit the floor with a hard, sharp clink, and rolled across the tiles. For a split second, the world stopped. Everyone in that room knew what it could be: an unexploded piece of ordnance, a small bomblet that could detonate from the slightest impact. In that sealed underground room, packed with people, oxygen tanks, and fragile equipment, an explosion would be catastrophic. The operating theater, a place of healing, would instantly become a tomb. The beeping of the monitors seemed to get louder. The fluorescent light hummed. The wounded man on the table was slipping away, but a small deadly object now commanded the room. If they ran, the patient would die. If they stayed and it exploded, they would all die. It was an impossible choice. How much of your own life do you risk for a stranger? Then, cutting through the paralysis, one of the young Syrian doctors stepped forward. As calmly as he could, he bent down and picked up the device with both hands, treating it like a fragile glass ornament. He didn't have a bomb suit or a robot. He had only his nerve. He walked out of the operating room to find a safer place for it, and the door swung shut behind him. Inside, David Knott and the team turned back to the patient. The bomb might still go off somewhere else in the building, but their job hadn't changed. They had to stop the bleeding, repair the damage, and keep this man alive. Fear was a constant companion for Knott in Aleppo. It came from the sky, with a roar of jets and the thud of artillery that made the concrete ceiling tremble and sent dust drifting down like ash. It came from the corridors, from the knowledge that armed men could burst in at any moment, that foreign doctors were prime targets for kidnapping. He felt his hands shake, his heart race. He thought of his family, a world away. But over the operating table, there was no room for that fear. The patient had devastating injuries. Shrapnel had torn through vessels near his heart and lungs. Even in a state-of-the-art hospital in peacetime, this would be a desperate fight. In M1, with its flickering lights and dwindling blood supply, it was almost beyond imagination. Knott had to open the man's chest, find the source of the bleeding, and stitch the torn vessel with absolute precision. His entire world shrank to the small, bright rectangle of the operating lamp. He focused on the exposed tissue, the spurting blood, the delicate anatomy. He pushed his fear aside and let years of training take over. Every single stitch was an act of defiance against the chaos outside. The Syrian team moved around him with the same focused intensity, passing instruments, monitoring vitals, counting the last few bags of blood. Outside, the war raged on. Explosions rumbled in the distance. Sometimes a blast was so close the entire hospital shuddered. Each tremor was a reminder that they were not just fighting injury. They were fighting a strategy of terror that had declared them enemies, but no one left the table. Slowly, miraculously, the bleeding stopped. The artery that had been gushing blood now pulsed gently beneath new stitches. The patient's blood pressure began to stabilize. His heart settled into a steadier rhythm. They still had hours of work ahead, but they had pulled him back from the brink. In that underground room, under the faltering lights, a small group of people had defied both politics and physics. They had kept a human being alive in a place designed for death. When David Knott finally left Syria, he carried more than just surgical memories. He carried the faces of the young Syrian doctors who risked their lives every day, not for a tour of duty, but because this was their home. He remembered the calm courage of the doctor, who picked up a live explosive so an operation could continue. He remembered the constant, gnawing anxiety and how, in spite of it all, kept returning to the operating table because the person in front of him needed help. Later, Knott would share these stories, turning individual moments of desperation and hope into a powerful testimony. He wanted the world to understand what it means to practice medicine in a war that targets healers. His stories from M1 strip away the headlines. Behind every news report of a struck medical facility are real people in scrubs and gloves. Their hands deep inside a patient's body while the building shakes around them, choosing again and again to stay. The story of David Knott in Aleppo isn't a Hollywood blockbuster. It's a portrait of fragile, stubborn humanity holding its ground. It shows that surgery under fire is about more than just a steady hand and a sharp scalpel. It's about the fundamental human decision repeated over and over to do the work of saving a life, even when the world seems determined to destroy it. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage from around the world.